Let's talk about your flagship product, the quintessential American single malt. What makes it unique and how did it achieve this new legendary 97-point score in the Wine Enthusiast magazine?
Yeah, that was such an incredible, the day that we found that out was a really great day. What makes our quintessential unique is it's really less of a product and more of a program, our quintessential American single malt program. And what we do is we produce our single malt, 100% malted barley as is required. We double distill it, and then we start maturing it, typically in ex-bourbon barrels. So that's all kind of fairly standard, very similar to how it might be done in Scotland. After about 4 years of maturation in the ex-bourbon barrels, that's when we start to get pretty creative with it, and we start transferring everything into secondary maturation casks. So because we're a winery distillery combination, we've got a lot of fun casks around the property that we can utilize for this. I also bring casks in from all over the globe. Sherry butts, port pipes, brandy casks, you name it, we're using those for this part of the process.
Wow.
So we transfer from our ex-bourbon casks into those secondary maturation casks, and we keep the aging process going just in these new casks. And so what that is going to afford us to do down the road is when the whiskey is ready, after say 6-7 years, we have a few different outlets. And these outlets for this product, they're very specific to the modern day market where people want to explore all these different products. So one, we can release them as unique single barrel offerings. For instance, we can release single barrel of single malt finished in a ruby port cask, a single barrel of single malt aged in a Amontillado sherry cask. We can take those to market as is so people can try them on their own. Or we can do our fun quintessential special releases, which is a blend of these different finishing casks to create something very unique. And that happens to be what we got our 97-point score for in Wine Enthusiast, was one of our special releases, which was a blend of these different finishing casks. And then there is a third option, and that is our Solera edition. We have two 1,100-gallon Solera vats here at Cedar Ridge, and it's not a traditional Solera with like the pyramid of barrels stacked on top. It's more of a modern twist on a Solera, where we're constantly adding these finishing casks into the vat. We bottle it halfway down, and then we fill it back up. We bottle it halfway down, and we fill it back up.
Oh, wow.
So we're always adding these new finishing casks into that vat so that the flavor profile of it is going to slowly evolve batch by batch. And the way that I always say it is batch 14 and 15, they'll probably be fairly similar, but batch 14 versus batch 44, there's going to be quite an evolution that's happened in flavor profile because of all those different finishing casks that we added to the vat. So long story short, the quintessential American single malt program, I would say it's quite culinary, if you will. We're using a lot of different flavor profiles that we're creating with a lot of different casks that we get from around the world. And then we're pairing them together to create something complex and unique that hasn't been offered to the market before.
Wow, that opens up so much creative options and potentials and things to play with. And I think, especially in today's market, this is truly an interesting way to do it because it always generates interest. And I think the wine industry and the whiskey as well is all about the stories and all these interesting things that people want to talk about it. And this really, really gives the start to these conversations.
You hit it right on the head. And whether it be wine, whiskey, or even beer right now, the market is so saturated, not even just in the US, globally. It's just very saturated. We've seen a lot of new producers come online. And what that's made is a market that's very hard to stand out in. And so by releasing stuff that is new and stuff that people haven't explored and experienced before, and also coming out with these fun single cask offerings so they can try all the different single casks, it creates, like you said, an opportunity to try a lot of new flavor profiles, a lot of new fun whiskeys that they haven't had before, and then they talk about it. They'll post on social media about it, they'll carry on about it, and then word spreads. And in a saturated market, that's about the only way to proceed right now, because if we just have one or two products and they're the same every time, yeah, people might talk about it, for the first month that we release it, but they're not going to talk about it 2-3 months later, let alone 5-10 years down the road. So we have to keep doing new stuff, interesting stuff to stand out within this market in order to stay competitive.
That's really smart, especially in the whiskey industry, I think. And as far as I see it, lots of whiskey brands are trying to homogenize. So it's trying to keep that standard, but it's the same all the time. But I think with this approach, you can really differentiate. And it's a bit more similar this way to the wine industry, because in the wine industry, even if wineries have like these traditional big old wineries, they have like not a huge spectrum, maybe 2 or 3 wines, their main wine, but still in the wine industry with the different vintages, it still creates this interest and differentiation between the different releases. But I think it's more similar to this, what you do.
Absolutely. And we absolutely are inspired by vintages and things of that nature. That's something that has kind of guided us along this path. And I think at the end of the day, I mean, what you need is, once again, exactly what you said, and that is you need these new things, but you also have to have a volume driver, right? I mean, because without one, the other is not sustainable. We can keep coming out with new stuff in these small quantities and small batches and things of that nature, but that's probably not going to be enough to keep the lights on here and to keep everyone employed. So what we need to do is we need to use these new releases that are getting 97-point scores and creating a lot of buzz, but then they also help drive people to our more economical everyday offerings, and they help build those brands, because that, at the end of the day, the stuff that is a little bit more basic and a little bit more readily available, that's what's going to make everything sustainable. So without one, the other really doesn't work or exist.
Makes sense.
Thanks for watching this video. You can watch the full podcast episode by clicking here, or watch another interesting video by clicking here. Let's continue the discussion in the comment section and see you in the next one.